They point to the tears. They point to the cries in the dark. They see a man trembling in a garden, begging to be saved from death, and they say, "Look, there is your proof. A God does not weep. A God does not fear. He was just a man." This is the favorite weapon of the cults. They take Hebrews chapter 5 verse 7 and they turn it into a cage to trap the Son of God. They use his humanity to deny his divinity. But they are making a fatal mistake. They are reading the text through the lens of a bias, not the lens of an exegete. Today, we are going to break that cage. We aren't just reading the verse, we are dissecting the grammar, the context, and the ancient intent. If you think Hebrews 5:7 proves Jesus was only a man, you've been looking at a masterpiece through a keyhole. It's time to open the door.
Let's start where the deception begins. The verse opens with a specific phrase, "in the days of his flesh." Stop right there. Think like a theologian. If Jesus were only a man, if his existence began at the womb of Mary and ended at the tomb, then his entire life was the days of his flesh. Why would the author of Hebrews need to qualify it? In Greek, the phrase tais, hēmerais, tais, sarkos, auto implies a temporary state. It points to a time when he was not in the flesh. This isn't an argument for his limitation. It is an argument for his incarnation. You cannot have days of flesh unless you are an eternal being who stepped into time and into skin. He didn't start as a man who tried to be God. He is the God who chose to experience what it means to be you. The very verse they use to prove he is just a man is the very verse that proves he pre-existed in glory.
Now look at the context. Hebrews chapter 5 is not about the weakness of a man, it is about the office of the high priest. Under the law, a high priest had to be taken from among men. Why? Because a bridge must touch both sides of the canyon. To represent humanity before a holy God, the mediator had to feel the weight of the human struggle. He had to know hunger, he had to know pain, he had to know the temptation to fear. If Jesus did not weep, if he did not feel the agony of Gethsemane, he could not be your high priest. His humanity wasn't a sign of his non-deity, it was the requirement for his priestly mission. He had to be made perfect, not from sin to sinless, but from qualified to complete through suffering. The sectarians see a weak man crying. The exegete sees a God-man qualifying himself to be the ultimate sacrifice. He wasn't crying because he lacked power, he was crying because he was carrying the weight of the world's rebellion.
The skeptics ask, why would a God pray to be saved from death? They misunderstand the prayer. In Hebrews 5:7, it says he was heard because of his godly fear or reverent submission. But look at the result. Jesus did die. So was his prayer ignored? No. The Greek word for save is sozein ek thanato, to save out of death. He wasn't praying to avoid the cross. He was praying for the resurrection. He was submitting his human life into the hands of the Father, knowing that the only way to break death was to go through it. The loud cries and tears weren't the cries of a coward. They were the cries of the sinless one staring at the cup of wrath. It wasn't the nails he feared, it was the separation. He suffered as a man so that he could save as God. You see weakness? I see a love so deep it was willing to feel the terror of the grave to find you.
You cannot use Hebrews 5 to contradict Hebrews 1. This is the golden rule of exegesis. Scripture interprets Scripture. The same author who wrote about his tears in chapter 5 wrote in chapter 1 verse 8, "But of the Son he says, 'Your throne, O God, is forever and ever.'" The same author wrote in verse 10 that Jesus is the one who laid the foundation of the earth in the beginning. Are we to believe the author forgot what he wrote 4 chapters earlier? No, the author is presenting the hypostatic union. Chapter 1, he is the creator, the radiance of God's glory. Chapter 5, he is the suffering servant, the merciful high priest. If you take chapter 5 without chapter 1, you don't have a Bible. You have a distorted fragment.
Jesus is not 50% God and 50% man. He is 100% God and 100% man. His tears don't cancel his throne. They explain why he is worthy to sit on it.
So to the religions and the cults who say Jesus is only a man because he wept, you have missed the point of the gospel. His humanity is not a reason to doubt him, it is the reason we can trust him. If he were only God, he could not die for us. If he were only man, he could not save us. Hebrews 5:7 isn't a proof text for Unitarianism. It is a monument to the humility of a creator who loved his creation enough to weep their tears. The Antichrist spirit tries to strip him of his deity to make him manageable, but the text stands firm. Stop looking for reasons to make him small. Look at the cross. Look at the empty tomb. And look at the high priest who went through the fire to bring you to the Father. Don't just read the words. Exegete them. I am ExegeteThem.